Alrighty. Hello, everybody. We'll give it just a couple minutes as people come in. Um, this is going to be completely off the cuff. I added this last minute to the schedule when I saw some openings, and I just want to have an open discussion, share my story of my transition from the military into my current role, talk a little bit about my job, a little bit about the field that I'm in, and really completely just open the floor. So, as interactive as possible. If you have questions, jump on and ask. And I'm just going to just chat with y'all. There is another talk going on. It's on KubeHound as a Kubernetes attack graph model. So if you're interested in the more technical side of the house, please feel free to jump over there. Not going to hurt my feelings. But if you want to hang out here with me, then you're more than welcome to do that too. And I'll be taking any questions in the session chat. All right, so with that, I'll go ahead and get started. So a little bit about my story. Hey, John, glad to see you here. So just a little bit about my story, right? I served 22 years in the Navy. I retired this past May, was my official retirement. And I'm currently the VP of Technology over at a company called Cloud Ranch. I want to talk about how I found the role and kind of what tips I have for success. Obviously everybody's story is completely different and everyone's going to approach things their own way. I'm approaching it from somebody who spent, from the day I graduated high school, I was already in delayed entry when I graduated high school. So I'd already made that decision. Never had a job in the real world until I was in the Navy. And then when I separated from the Navy, 22 years later, never written a resume, never interviewed, none of those things. And so that's the perspective that I approach it with. And please, if you have questions that I can answer for your own life or for your own, edification, please throw them in the chat as I just kind of ramble here. But I found I'm the kind of person that likes to plan ahead as much as I can. I don't like the unknown. I was back in January or February of 2020. I already knew that I was going to be retiring from the military after that tour of duty I was on. And so I started looking at what I wanted to do. At that point, I knew I wanted to go into IT or cybersecurity in some fashion or form. And so I started, hunting around that way. I had already got my bachelor's degree in IT security from Western Governors University. And I was looking for what really I wanted to do beyond that. I had some small roles in the Navy, working as like a help desk manager, working as a system admin, and kind of that, but nothing really more technical than that. And numerous certifications, up through Security Plus and my CCNA security. But that was kind of the peak of it. And, in 2020, right before the world kind of shut down, I came into the mindset of I've got a wife and 4 kids. I'm going to be out of the military in a few years, and I need to make sure that, I can still provide at the same level or better than I was at that point. And so I started kind of just looking around, and the organization that I came across, of course, was VetSec. In VetSec, I found a community of people that were all either trying to navigate the same thing, the cybersecurity industry, or willing to provide advice, willing to provide constructive feedback, and had just started opening the doors of providing training to people. And I was one of the first recipients of one of the trainings that they were able to give out. And that was from eLearn Security back then. And I really just started kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. By doing that first bit of training, I very quickly learned that pen testing was not my forte. I enjoy it. It's a fun hobby, but it's not something that I could sit down and do day in and day out. And so I moved more towards the design and development area, and really just started kind of talking to people, researching different companies, seeing what's out there. And a lot of those are still my friends today through the community in VetSec. Because of that, when it came time for the last year of my military service, I was really becoming eligible for programs like the DoD Skill Bridge and things like that. I had a fairly strong professional network of people who were navigating this same landscape that I was. And I landed a Skill Bridge internship with a company called Rudder Shift. Rudder Shift is a small Skill Bridge third-party provider that places military personnel in Skill Bridge internships with other companies. Because of that, I was able to take a lot of time for myself away from the military while I was still collecting a paycheck and really reflect more on what I wanted to do and learn more about what I wanted to do. And then, thanks to the network in VetSec, I managed to land the role that I'm currently in, which is as the VP of Technology for Cloud Range. That entire process was because of my network. I didn't apply on company websites for jobs. I had help from the community working my resume, mentorship in tooling it towards the kind of roles that I was interested in. And then through the network in the community, again, when the role came available, a friend of mine gave me a strong referral towards the role. And that is entirely how I landed where I'm at today. I'm the senior technical person for the company. I'm in charge of the technology stack and the training and curriculum development. And really, if I hadn't been able to translate those skills, and if I hadn't had the internal referral from a strong network and really, have some kind of inside help understanding the weak areas or the challenges that the company faced and how I could address them head on. That is how I landed it. And, John mentions it in the chat that networking is critical. He mentioned it last night too. I see it every day. And as the board chair at VetSec, I'm kind of in a unique position where I get a lot of connection requests from people who are in the military in their last few months. And I see a lot of people who are saying, I've applied to 150 jobs and I've only gotten one call back. Two things, like just throwing a blanket application out there, like John said last night, is probably the hardest way to get your foot in the door, but also not tailoring that resume. And I see people who have a single resume that goes towards every role that they're going to apply for, and they throw that same resume everywhere, right? It is extremely important to build that network. And so that's what I'd like to focus the first little part of this talk on. And if anybody has questions, again, please throw them out there. In my opinion, again, these are, small disclaimer. This is the opinion of one person who went from the military to one job in the civilian sector, right? So take that for what it is. But in my opinion, if you don't build a strong professional network, as John said last night, you're deselecting yourself from potential positions that you could qualify for. I see, a few common misnomers. So one, folks in the military, very procedural compliant, directive orders based, right? You don't have to meet every job requirement to apply for the job. So take that for what it's worth. If you meet 50% of them and you can, honestly, look at the requirements. And if you can meet half of them and speak to those on your resume and tailor your resume towards that role, then apply for the job. Better yet, find somebody that knows, somebody at that company, or find a veteran at that company and reach out that way early by researching kind of what it is you'd like to do. You can use communities like VetSec for that, where you can really take a hard look at what it is you'd like to do in the field. Turns out I took a hand, 3 years before my transition at pen testing and did not enjoy it very much. And so I talked to a lot of people and kind of learned what I thought I could take my strengths and what I enjoyed and be relatively good at. reach out to those companies, find the company that you'd like to work for, the type of company that you'd like to work for. Right. So many times I see it. I see the LinkedIn post of I'm separating in 4 months and I want to work in cybersecurity. Right. That doesn't tell me that you have direction. That doesn't tell me that you know what you want to do. And as somebody who's in the hiring manager role now, where I'm at today, um, that isn't clear enough to me to tell me that you understand, what my company does when I'm looking to hire, and really what you want to do. So I'll leave it there on the networking piece for any questions that come up with that. But you know, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll throw my LinkedIn in the chat. You can also, find the company that you want to look for and ask about that company in VetSec. Ask about that company in other places. Oh, Chris, you just missed the networking part. Bottom line, build a professional network and use that to find your job. And you can click back on replay to learn more, but please come in and ask questions. And John, asks, what if I'm not sure what part of cybersecurity I want to work in? That's where you lean on the communities like VetSec or other organizations to help you figure that out. Level Effect, one of our partners, has a cyber aptitude assessment where they try and figure out what your kind of natural fit in a role would be, right? You can take a look at your strengths that you already have on your own resume from your MOS or your NEC or whatever you did in the military. And you can think about that. You can look at, for me personally, it was the thing that attracted me in cybersecurity was the mission. You can also just like people in our field, there are always, right, those people that are going to tell you no, but in general, people in our field, if you reach out to them on LinkedIn, find a veteran that's doing a job that you think sounds sexy or that you think you want to do, and try and strike up a meaningful conversation. Don't just start with an ask of their time, but hey, I read such and such about you. I understand you're a veteran. I understand you're working in pen testing. I would love to connect with you so I can follow your posts and understand more of what it's like to work in that field. Right? They're probably going to connect. Beyond that, like strike up a conversation, offer to buy them a coffee, right? Have a discussion with them about what they do and learn from them. And if after, the day in the life of John's job at Google doesn't sound appealing to you, then look at what else is out there. If you just need an understanding of the different fields in cybersecurity, then that's where you get into, places like VetSec, where you can look at that big picture overview. Another thing that I want to talk about really briefly, just as a general resource, a couple of our own members, Jack Scott, who's going to be giving a talk tomorrow here at VetSecCon, and John Helmus, both came out with a book. It might hide it, maybe not. Okay, the blur's good. So Cybersecurity Career Master Plan, right? That's another decent book on figuring out, certification versus education roles, how to write your resume, how to work on interviews, things like that. So there's lots of different ways to figure out what you might want to do. And, I give a talk numerous times a year on owning your transition and being deliberate. That is a piece of it, right? You have to know what it is you want to do first before you start looking for the resources that you think are going to get you into cybersecurity. Yeah, Chris, thanks for posting the title. Yeah, Cybersecurity Career Master Plan. It's one of the packet books. And John shared the NICE framework, which is a passion project of mine over at Cloud Range. We map all of our training against the framework. There's 52 different work roles that the NICE framework has in cybersecurity. And you can read a little bit about what each of those are and what they do. And look at, in general, right, it's not a great fit for the private industry necessarily, but in general, you can read about what those work roles and understand what type of knowledge, skills, and abilities you need to be successful in that role. So that's another way that you can kind of gamify your plan or make a good direction for your plan into cybersecurity. Okay, so that's kind of a bit of the networking piece. The other side of it that I'd love to talk about is the mental health perspective. And, you know, the transition is in part about getting a job, right? You have to put food on the table. And that's kind of a, bottom line, right? Um, but you also have to think about what you're going to do, who you're going to be. Um, for myself, being 22 years in the military, didn't really realize it over the time. It just kind of creeps up on you. But a large part of your identity becomes that military rank, that military person, right? Um, I was extremely fortunate, and I was talking to my SkillBridge advisor just yesterday about how fortunate I was to find a SkillBridge program where I could have that time to decompress. There is so much going on in that last year that you're transitioning out of the military, that our civilian counterparts, when I spoke to Fortinet at their Veteran Advisory Council, they just didn't realize or don't understand because they haven't been through it. You're trying to figure out where you're going to move to potentially, and that could be tied to the job that you're willing to take, right? So again, need direction to know what field I want to go into, need to know where I'm willing to move to, need to find the job so I can get the move done. And there's all the paperwork and everything else that goes along with the military side of the move. There's also the VA transition process where you're moving all your medical from the military over to the VA, right? There's filing for VA disability benefits. Maybe you're coming, from just a short tour in the military where you've only done 4 or 6 years, and you're thinking that you'd like to go into college, right? Then you're navigating the GI Bill. Maybe you're looking at vocational rehab, VRE, vocational rehab and education, right? That program from the VA where if you have any GI Bill benefits left, you can use VRE to get funding for specific roles that would help you, better for me to be in this role because of my VA disabilities right now. And then there's also programs like VetTec, where you can work with VetTec partnered providers that partner with the VA, that VA pays your tuition to those programs. Those tend to range more on the boot camp side. In general, I'll recommend those for more of the software dev side. If you can't go to a 4-year school and get a computer science degree, that might be an option for you then. But in the cybersecurity realm, they haven't really matured as much there. But there is a lot that comes with all of that burden that's placed on you when you're working towards that transition out of the military. Again, don't discount that you're going to need some time. I see so many people who walk off the job and take off the uniform on a Friday, and they put on the suit and tie on a Monday, and they go straight into a role. You might not be able to do that, and it's not a sign of weakness. You need to understand that it's going to take some time, right? Just for my own process, right? I'm filing my medical claims as part of my discharge from the service, and 4 separate appointments just to do that evaluation. And one of those is completely all day, right? So having to take time off to accomplish those things. Again, having employers that look very favorably on those, taking time for those things is good. But there's a whole nother piece that comes with this transition, right? There's the holistic side of you as a person, and you are not your job, whether it was the military or whether it's the civilian sector that you're moving into. If there's any questions about that piece of it, that was really what I wanted to kind of drive home in this talk today. And I realize I'm only 20 minutes in, but I'd love to get a Q&A discussion going with people, because that's honestly the 2 major pieces I wanted to talk about was the professional networking side of the house and the mental health piece. The taking time for yourself, again, is extremely important. For me, my last year in the service was landing a new job, moving, which we were, packing boxes every evening, driving the U-Haul to the new house every couple of weeks, unboxing, trying to deal with that, right? Trying to gain more skills so that I can be successful at the new role, and then also getting the VA disability benefits claims done, going to those evaluation appointments, not to mention like I retired. So the planning and putting on of the retirement ceremony and all of the rigmarole that comes with that too. So there's a lot there. I've got a question here. So assuming you've had some challenges dealing with civilian subordinates after transitioning from the military, what are some of the ways you've adjusted to this drastic change in workplace environments? I can talk a little bit about how I've adjusted. I definitely have had challenges, and I think everybody is going to have some challenges. I don't work with a lot of veterans in my current role, but I do work with some. It's kind of a lonely area to be in because I'm the VP of Tech. So really, I work for the founder and CEO. And then I have a team that works for me, right? So on the technical side, like I don't have a necessarily a peer on the tech side, but I work in very much a startup environment. So it's similar to the military in that in some ways it's, all about getting the mission done, getting the job done. It's not about logging in at 9 a.m., clocking off at 5 p.m. I'm very fortunate to have a remote environment, which works better with everything that I went through in the military. I have adjusted much better to being able to work in a remote environment. I would say my biggest struggle is still that kind of military to civilian translation. Just think about, for me, I just try and think about if I was a customer. I develop a lot of the product or work with a team that develops a lot of the product that my company produces. And so I always try and work with the end user in mind. And I just try and, I don't know, I try and communicate in a way that I think I would like to be communicated to if I didn't have somebody that could, give me orders necessarily like it was in the military. So I try and, discuss things with as much empathy as I can and try and understand where people are coming from. I have learned a lot more thinking before you speak. Things are not as nearly as fast paced, but I think you'd be surprised at how somebody can transition out of the military and show up to a civilian job. You're going to be way more successful than you're going to give yourself credit for people that haven't made that transition yet, right? One of my mentors in VetSec that I spoke to a few times, was talking about the anxiety associated with trying to find that first position. And he said, look, you're going to be fine. You're going to show up at the right time. You're going to ask thoughtful questions about the challenges that the business is facing, and you're going to be somebody who takes action. And that's generally true of anybody that did a tour in the military. Is you're gonna be decisive about things, right? You're gonna be that person that's known as like a get stuff done kind of person. Chris is talking about networking ideas, connect with others, recruiters and business owners. Yeah, Chamber of Commerce is a way. Again, it really depends on what you want to do, Chris. If you are doing networking to find out what you want to do, then that's one thing. If you're looking to be an entrepreneur, then that's where I would start thinking about like the Chamber of Commerce. Like if you're looking to start your own small consulting business or something like that, right? Then that's where I would be looking at that kind of stuff where you're looking local. But I work for a company that's very small, but they're based in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm in the Seattle, Washington area. And I am only one of two people on the West Coast working for the company. And I managed to land, a very small company role from across the US. So really, I wouldn't just work with or try and network with recruiters and business owners unless you're looking again to towards that entrepreneurial side, I would really consider networking with people who are doing the job that you think you want to do. That's who you will be best equipped to learn from, right? The people that are going to be your peers. If you want to go again that entrepreneurial side, that's where I would start talking down that front. If you're looking for resources internship is also an option, right? Internships, volunteering. Volunteering can be a little tricky because they're probably not going to let you get very hands-on with the data that they are protecting necessarily, but there are cyber adjacent volunteer positions or internships too. If you're looking for resources, let me pull up a few things that I can share. On the technical side, right, I'm a big fan of the Hack the Boxes, the Try Hack Me's, and there's a lot out there in that realm. Let's see what I've got here. And then if you're looking for like the VA kind of transition assistance, I can speak to that too. It's really kind of where everybody would like the rest of this talk to go. I give a presentation called Owning Your Transition, and I can run through that deck really quick while we're just chatting. Josh, what would you like to do, or what are you doing right now? Let's talk about it. I'll go ahead and share the screen while you work on replying in the chat. Yeah, that's a little bit about me. Seattle area. The top picture's me at the North Pole with a British submarine group, and that was my submarine, and that's one of my hiking photos. Yeah, this was really for transitioning military and veterans, people trying to get into the industry. Yeah, so, I talk about this talk I gave to Act Now Education, and I talked about kind of owning the transition process, right? It's not about the tools. And when we talk in tech, right, everybody wants the shiniest new tools that are going to solve all their problems. It's not. It's about the discipline and the people and the processes. So I'm a big fan of the G Suite. I use Google Tasks and then throw those in time blocks on my calendar every single day. I have a personal and work calendar. They sync and talk to each other. And then for the bigger projects, I use something like Asana where I can get reports, dashboarding. That's more for the work environment. But the first thing, as I kind of discussed, right, educating yourself on the industry. What do you want to do and how do you want to do it? Again, find the person that's doing the job you think you want to do, right? You can always offer to buy them a coffee and see if they'll take 15, 20, 30 minutes out of their day to talk to you. Chances are they will. And do that networking, right? If you're thinking about software development for veterans, for military spouses, right? Operation Code is a great organization. Vets in Tech is another one. If you're across the pond over in the UK, like Tech Vets, amazing organization. But there is an organization out there that is a veteran service organization that is helping veterans get into the field you want to get into, right? When I sat down with the veterans program outreach people at Fortinet, I sat down with somebody from Onward Opportunity where they provide one cert, the training and pay for one cert for every veteran, no matter how long you've been out, and any military spouses. I am using that program myself as a veteran to gain a certification and take advantage of that benefit. Obviously, books, Cybersecurity Career Master Plan, right? Yeah, Michael, that's what I'm using it to get as well. And then on the networking side, right, we had a talk last year from Jack Scott on building your LinkedIn profile. Great talk. That is hosted on our YouTube page. But again, like, think of your LinkedIn profile as like your quick editable resume, right? It should talk to what you want to do. I am this with these skills. I am seeking a role as this. LinkedIn isn't just a place, again, Tom's opinion here. LinkedIn isn't just a place to search for every pen tester out there because I want to be a pen tester and just run down the list of 100 names and click connect next to all of them, right? It's about meaningful connections, right? That's where you express interest in them because you are interested in them and what they do. not just for the transaction of what you can get out of it. And look for content that helps. Our organization works to curate a lot of training content and try and provide the quality stuff that we can get out there. Interview preps, right? There are a lot of places that do that. For WGU, they offer a service. We do, right? Libraries offer. BigInterview.com is another one through Google Cybersecurity Cert. And then resume preparation, right? Your master resume is just the one with everything. Your tailored resume, as John spoke to last night, and that is where you are looking at the job posting. You're making sure that you're hitting those keywords, and you're making sure that you have those skills that is looking for. Again, it doesn't need to be that you meet 100% of the requirements, right? But you do have to work towards it. Impactful statements, right? John talked a lot about that, way better than I could last night as well. But as this position, I did this and it helped with this, right? And then, yeah, hey, my second bullet there is the most important thing on this slide, right? Don't be a generalist. We did that in the military, right? We were all about being a generalist, right? Every time I went from one duty station to another, I had a different job, and I had to learn it quickly, and I had to be good enough at it to do it, right? In VetSec, I see members all of the time sign up for every single resource we have, and then I'll look a month later and they haven't touched any of them, or they've touched one of them and they haven't even finished one course on Coursera from us, right? You need to first educate yourself on the space, and then second, go down the rabbit hole, become a subject matter expert on one thing. One of my closest friends at VetSec writes exploit development for the Windows operating system, right? Does exploit dev kind of stuff there. He only does it for Windows. He only does it for desktop. He doesn't touch mobile, right? Dive down the rabbit hole and become an expert on the field you want to get into, and the rest will kind of follow. Certifications, right? Again, what are they for? They should show the relevance towards what you're trying to do. Everything kind of aligned in that direction. Same with formal education, right? It's the what is it getting you? Computer science is kind of where we make the recommendation if you're going back to college, right? That provides such a big foundation for everything else that's going to follow. And a strong area in, strong background in networking. Let's see, what else? Yeah, if you want to be a leader, right? If you want to work on that side of the house, you already have the skills. You can look at things like Google's project management or the PMP, CAPM, things like that, right? Those help you get this translation of the skills that are relevant to the industry, right? Like I knew how to get stuff done, right? I retired as a Master Chief Petty Officer from the Navy. Like I knew how to manage large groups of people. I knew how to, in general, get the mission done around my job field. Now it's how do I translate that and use those same skills in this field? And that's where stuff like the Google project management, the CISSP, right? Those kinds of things come in play. And yeah, right. There's numerous ways. Formal education, college. We talked about certs, boot camps. I'll give you one quick thing on boot camps, and it's that bottom bullet, right? Graduation rates, placement rates, meaningful placement rates. If there's a boot camp that tells you that, in 8 weeks, you're going to make 6 figures being a pen tester, if only you go through this, but the boot camp doesn't even give you Sec Plus, guess what? They're probably not going to get you what the title of the boot camp says they're going to get you. You take a cyber offensive penetration tester boot camp. I would hope, based on the title, that they're going to help you get a job as a pen tester when you're done. Chances are that's not the case. So please, please, please do your research on boot camps. There is only one that VetSec partners with, and that's for a reason. If you'd like to know more, go read my rants on LinkedIn. And then here's a ton of resources that I'm going to leave on the page while I get back to the chat. So, be disciplined. Again, pick the direction and go down one thing. Do not sign up for this whole list. Please, please don't. And I'll leave it on this slide. So let's go back a little bit. So Josh, leader, facilities technician, 10 years of experience running HVAC and electrical, customer facing, work order ticket system, minor IT work. Yeah. So Josh, you say you love cyber. What do you love in cyber? What do you want to do? Right. You're doing so BTL1, right? That would lean you towards the SOC analyst side. I'll be honest, I've never taken a SANS course, so I don't know a lot of those. I think GFACT, GISF, and GSEC are kind of that SEC plus kind of SANS level, if I'm not mistaken. But really, what is it do you want to do? Again, on the cyber adjacent kinds of things, like, are you good at teaching? Right? I hire trainers all the time. I look for people that have blue team experience that can teach blue teamers. I hire developers to write scenarios that we can run on our cyber ranges. I'm looking for people there that have Python, Go scripting experience, that can think like a hacker, that really want to like stump the blue teams with stuff like that. That's kind of that realm. I'll go down the questions while if you've got a reply, you throw that in. Brad, mentorship partners. So I'll always recommend Veterati, but we have a mentorship program directly in VetSec. So there's a workflow, and you hit me up on the Slack, but there's a workflow basically where you fill out a form, you talk about what your interests are. That form gets popped into a channel of volunteers who have volunteered to be mentors. And if you say, I want to talk to a red teamer, well, then Tyler, the pug, is going to reach out to you because he's our red team mentor. But it might take some time, right? We have way more requests for mentorship than we have mentors. I just ask, that's where you're looking for those longer term, meaningful connections, right? The one-on-ones that you can touch base with once a month and talk to the same person, those kinds of things. Dusty says FR Secures CISIP mentor program, free boot camp. That is amazing. I couldn't agree more. It is great kind of group cohort going through the CISSP. John, I haven't looked at that. Oh, I have looked at that. Paul Jeremy's security certification roadmap. That is a great graphic for kind of looking at what everything is out there and kind of organizing it by domain. So thanks for that link. And yeah, John hit it, right? Like the medical field, but specialize in one area, right? And yeah, you can definitely change focus easier in cyber than in medicine. Chris, I would not say a computer science degree is essentially required for someone transitioning. I wouldn't say that at all. I would say if you're getting into development, or if you have the time to go to college and want to get strong foundations of skills that are going to carry you into many deep areas of cyber, it would be recommended. I don't have a computer science degree. I have a bachelor's in IT security and a master's in cybersecurity, which was all policy and GRC. But I'm the head technical person for my company, so definitely not required. Let's see, what else? Yeah, Professor Messer's fantastic. Focus, Josh, is digital forensics and incident response, SOC. Okay. So yeah, BTL1 is a great certification. Throw your resume at us. I think you got some feedback on it last night too, but happy to help. And I know a lot of people that are hiring for SOC analysts or that will be in the future. So I'm happy to help with that network as well. And Brandon says, yeah, I don't have a way to move my camera around, but I have 4 bookshelves against that wall over there that are loaded up with books that I'm probably never going to get a chance to read. But I do collect a crap ton of resources. On the SOC side, I'm really a fan of the pathways that TriHackMe has. I am a fan of the BTL1. I haven't had a lot of experience on the Hack the Box cert stuff yet, but I do know they've come out with stuff as well. And I'm pretty sure TCM Security is working on some blue team stuff. That's also an area you can take a look at. One thing that's not on this list here is also SANS Cyber Aces. That's a completely free training from SANS. Yeah, just stay focused on a specific direction, right? Maintain focus on that content. We're going to be changing the way we do things at VetSec with some of our training providers here. Probably, I don't want to promise too soon. It's probably turn of the year, where we're going to be looking at how can we run things in cohort. Let me get that link for you really quick, and I will post the SANS Cyber Aces. Oh, John found a similar link. Then yeah, I think we hit the same thing basically. Oh, it looks like John's got a better link than I do. Use his. Yeah, and see, Brandon, we already have a SOC analyst in the group. So there is a channel in the Slack right for VetSec called Blue Team, #Blue-Team. So you can hop in there and ask questions as well. But really, everybody, thank you for letting me have the chance to just kind of ramble with you all. Two things, right? I'm going to go back to the point of my talk, and there's my contact information if anybody's interested. Networking is how you find jobs today, right? Educate yourself on the industry by networking. Find the company you want to work for by networking with people at that company. Learn about the company, learn about the culture. And remember, veterans have extremely low unemployment numbers, but veterans have extremely high underemployment numbers, and you do not have to settle, right? Zalia, if you're a veteran, you can go to veteransec.org and sign up. We're open to friendly nations and U.S. veterans and military. Links there in the chat. Right, you are interviewing that company just as much as that company is interviewing you. If you get to the interview stage, you've already passed the bar for the basics of the technical. They want to know how you solve problems, how you think, and if a culture is a fit. So, right, if you have any questions about those companies that you're learning about, throw those in the Slack too, right? Hey, I talked to so-and-so at this company and they said this. What do you guys think? Or, hey, I'm in salary negotiations at this company. What do you think about this, right? We have very frank discussions behind the doors of VetSec Slack. So please jump in there. And then the second thing I want to leave everyone with before we jump to the next set of talks on the schedule is, if you need to take time to figure out, a little bit more of your identity past the military and figure out who you are, what you want to do, right? Figure out what kind of roles you want to do, whether that's hybrid or in person or remote. I'm going to recommend at least hybrid for people that are very new to the industry, that are starting in more junior positions. I'm an exception to that rule, right? I managed to go, vetsec.slack.com. And if you need to reset your password, you can do it there. Right. I managed to go from being a senior leader in the Navy to a senior position at a company. That isn't always the case. Acknowledge that you are career changing and you might have to take a step back or down a little bit, but you should quickly regain that just with the drive, the determination, and everything else, every quality that you had from the military that has kind of, been drilled into you over the years. So, and then the last thing, right? Please help spread the word about the organization. If you can donate, great. If you have a company that you work for that's looking to sponsor organizations as part of their DE&I initiatives, right? We are all of us veterans, obviously. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit. Everything there's tax deductible as well. So please, with that, I'm going to leave you guys to the next talk. Thank you so much for your time. And if you need anything, please reach out. You can hit me on Twitter. You can hit me on Mastodon. You can hit me on LinkedIn. All right. Thanks, everybody.